My notes just say apologize for disappearing. I was away for much longer than I wanted to be. My goal was to do a video every month, but obviously now it's been two months. So I apologize to everyone and to myself. Summer is the busiest time of year for me, and I don't know, I thought I could squeeze in one video or two in the last 2 months, but that didn't happen. There's just been lots of movement, lots of changes, lots of fun stuff going on, but I'm here. I made it, and I'm hoping that I can make up for the lost time by doing something a little bit different with this video. So we'll see how it goes. So last month in September, I got to attend the 49th annual Toronto International Film Festival, which happens in Toronto, and it's always a fun time. And I thought that I would use this video to do like a little TIFF recap / some of my top picks from the festival, so stay tuned for that. TIFF is always exciting because not only are the movies and the stars coming, but for the first 3-4 days of the festival, the roads are closed off. Well, the roads that TIFF takes place on are closed off, and they have something called Festival Street, where different vendors come and show their work or sell their product, and you get to buy stuff or just enjoy the vibes, walk around, chill, have fun. So even if you're not there for the films or the stars, you can still have a good time. This time my sisters were with me, so I got to experience TIFF not just as someone who was working the festival, but also with a fresh set of eyes. I also got to hang out with some of my friends when I wasn't in a screening and enjoy some food. I say some, but it was more like a lot of food, which was really good. I got to meet a lot of new people this year as well. There is a place called the African Hub at the film festival where a lot of African filmmakers or people who are producers or interested in production would come and have discussions, which was very interesting. I didn't know that happened, but it's there every year. It's just a very encouraging time to be with other creative people in that space. And speaking of creative people, I got invited to go to a panel discussion hosted by Tabia Studios. And that discussion honestly was not just the discussion, the whole event was one of the most uplifting events I've ever been to. It was just a very encouraging, freeing space for me. It literally was like water to my soul. And something that I've learned from this TIFF experience, and I've been telling people, is that if you want to be an artist, you should be around other artists. And I learned that recently with all the people that I've met when I've been around other writers or producers or actors, and just listening to them speak about their work or about their dreams. It's like, oh yeah, like I really also want to do this, and I also had this idea, and it kind of just allows you to go back into that creative mindset. Or even if you're really busy, really overwhelmed, and haven't had time to think about what your dreams are, think about the things that you want to create, you're bound to see other people who are in that boat or in a similar boat and who are still finding a way to pursue their dreams. And that just encourages you to do the same thing, even if they don't say it to you, just by watching them or listening to them speak. Shout out to Tabia Studios for that. I hope I get to see more of what they do in the city. I also got to attend the Toronto International Nollywood Film Festival, and I went as a guest because my sister screened a short film there, which also won an award, and I will speak more on that later at some point. But that was a lot of fun. Again, just seeing other creative people, and also seeing them get recognized for the work that they put in was very special. One last TIFF adjacent thing I did was I got to go to a party for a short film that Pharrell was a part of. So he was there, which is pretty cool. It was a very interesting experience, very different experience for me because I wasn't used to the vibes. It was just different vibes that I was used to. But it was something new, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool. Like, I got to do that. That's cool. All in all, TIFF was a whirlwind. This whole year has been a whirlwind for me, honestly, but specifically the last 2-3 months. So TIFF was just another thing that kind of breezed by, but it was a lot of fun. I think this year I got to speak to a lot more people and do a lot more things outside of watching films, which, I mean, last year was a strike, so that's all I was doing. But this year I actually got to spend time with people, which for introverts like me can be exhausting, but also I realize it also encourages you, just lifts you up, lifts your mood up. So it was very, very nice to be part of it again this year. But TIFF is for films. So here are my top picks of TIFF 2024. First of all, let me say that there were many films I didn't see this year. I feel like I would be talking to people during the festival or afterwards, and they'd mention a film and I'm like, what? I didn't even see that on the list. There were so many films at TIFF this year, so many really good ones that I didn't get to see. But I have heard good things about a lot of films, and some of the ones that I didn't get to see but that I definitely want to check out are 40 Acres, Nora, Dead Talent Society, The Substance, and Life of Chuck, which actually won the TIFF People's Choice Award. So that'd be, I think, a really good film that probably a lot of people are going to want to check out. But I want to see all of those films when I get the chance to. But here are my top picks of the films that I did see. I'm going to start in no particular order, but I will start with the big ones. The big ones. First of all, The Wild Robot, which is actually in theaters right now. So go check it out. You will not regret it. That's right off the bat. You're going to love the film. But The Wild Robot stars Lupita Nyong'o as a robot, Rosem7134. Is that her name? Yes, it's amazing. Lupita is Rosem7134, or Roz, and she is a robot who gets displaced on an island after an accident, and she has to navigate living on this island with creatures who she can't speak to, who don't need her help because she's made for humans. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful story of found family and of parenthood and of belonging. And it's gorgeous. And if you're one of those people who's been asking for, 2D animations, bring them back. This is one of those films. It's just very reminiscent, I think, of the classic Disney movies. The music is amazing. There are many moments that are just tear jerkers. So go see it. Bring your tissues with you. You will enjoy it. Next film, Conclave. I thought Conclave was really good, really well done. I really enjoyed it. It stars Ralph Fiennes and Stanley Tucci, among other people, and is about basically cardinals trying to elect the new pope and all the politicking that happens when those meetings happen, I'm sure. And it has a lot of debatey elements, because people are almost running for office. And so they have to have their talking points and the things that they're going to stand for. And there's a lot of debating back and forth. A lot of people's secrets are revealed, and somebody comes in that just shakes up everything in a way that I love so much. I just thought it was so beautiful. And the way it ends, I think, is also really beautiful. I think films like Conclave are very interesting because they do illuminate a lot of politicking, I call it, that happens even in spaces like the church. And I say even, but pretty much it's just people gathered, right? And sometimes when there's power involved, it's every man for himself. So I like that. I like stories like that illuminate those kinds of, things. But I think it also has an integrity to it that I really admire. And especially with this new person that comes and shakes things up, I like how they do that. And I like the integrity they bring to the story. Yeah, it is very good. In that vein, there's also a movie called Heretic. And I've said that Heretic is kind of like Conclave, but gothic. It's about these two girls who are part of the Mormon church who go and try to evangelize to this older man in his house. And essentially it doesn't go well for them. He's very well read and seems to know a lot about different world views. So obviously in a way it's like they've met their match. He's ready to debate with them. But it's very eerie and kind of spooky, and he goes to great lengths to convince them of his own position, which is interesting. And again, I love stories like this. I don't know. I like things that challenge your worldview and make you think. So this is also really good. If you're into spooky movies, this is one for you that you will enjoy. At the time of recording this, I haven't done this yet, but I will be doing a podcast soon about this movie with two of my colleagues that I went to TIFF with. So when that's up, I will add the link to that in the description below if you want to engage more with the story and with us. The next film on my list is On Swift Horses, starring Daisy Edgar Jones and Jacob Elordi, and also Will Poulter. Shout out to Will Poulter. I really, really enjoyed this film. It's based on a book, I believe, And I said in our TIFF kind of wrap up that I saw a few films this year at TIFF that centered queer people in a way that didn't other them from the audience, in my opinion. Like, we're going to see a movie and it's a story that happens to have queer characters, not necessarily a queer story, even though that is also within it, you know what I mean? But it doesn't remove you or remove them from you. There's no distance in that sense. We're part of the same story, which I really liked. And On Swift Horses is one of them. It is very much a story about love in its different forms, and also heartbreaking because of that. This young couple who, they're planning their life together. They have big dreams to go by the white picket fence house, and they want to include the husband's younger brother in their plans. But he has other plans of his own. He's still living his best life. He's still out there, And so the story mostly is about the younger brother and the wife, but also about the husband finding out what they really want and who they really want to be. I think I'll put it there. But it's very beautiful, I think. And again, just a story about love in different forms. The next film is Emilia Perez, which I really loved. I love this film so much. Part of that is because it is a musical. And side note, if you want to get me, just give me a musical. I'm singing and dancing. I'm there. I'm sat. So it didn't take long for me to fall in love with the film. But also, it's a crime kind of drama film, which you wouldn't normally expect to also be a musical. So that I found very interesting. And maybe also, I did go in blind, so I didn't know it was going to be a musical. So when they started singing, I was like, what? So that made me like it a lot more, I guess. But still, it's a very interesting combination of the two genres. I think it's very beautifully done. And Zoe Saldana, I didn't know she could sing. So I was like, whoa. Yeah, it's really good. And I also find the story very fascinating. I might actually talk about it a lot more, maybe in another video. It's going to be on Netflix on November 13th. So in just about a month's time, we'll all get to see it, and maybe you can talk about it then. So those are some of the bigger films that I saw that I enjoyed a lot. Now I'm going to go on to some of the smaller films. I saw a film called Love in the Big City, which is a Korean film, and I also really love this film. This is another film I saw that I think centered queer people in a way that didn't other them from the story or from the audience. And the story is about two young adults just trying to navigate their lives in Seoul. They're trying to navigate school and work and romance and just their own kind of dreams and passions and what they want to do with their lives. And I don't know, as a young adult, you can relate to that. But it's also just about friendship and love, again, I think in its entirety, in a way that maybe we leave for romantic stories. But I think this film really reminds us, there's like this friendship and this family. Those are also important relationships that we receive love from, that we give love to. And so I just really, really loved the movie, and I think you should go see it. Another Korean film I saw was I, the Executioner, which was a lot of fun. It's basically about these detectives who are looking for a vigilante he's killing criminals because he thinks the police isn't doing their job. And basically the public is on his side, like, yeah, he's doing the job that you guys aren't doing. And it's funny. It's very entertaining. I think you can tell that the actors really enjoyed what they were doing, and the director really enjoyed what they were doing too. For the Jung Hae-in stands in the house, this is him. This is Jung Hae-in. Like, I've never seen him before. I don't know him too well. I've only ever seen him in, the K-dramas that we watch. But I think he has such a different role in this that really shows his range as an actor. And I am happy for him about that. I'm happy that we get to see that on screen as well. Okay, next, I'm actually going to talk about two films that I saw, which I think are kind of similar in a sense, and that's why I'm putting them together. They're called The End and Went Up the Hill, and they actually have big name stars in them. The End stars George Mackay, Michael Shannon, and Tilda Swinton, and Went Up the Hill has Dacre Montgomery and Vicky Creeps in it. So these aren't people no one knows, but I'm putting these two films together because I think they're very allegorical in nature. So Went Up the Hill is about this young man who comes back home for his estranged mother's funeral and meets his mother's wife, and she tells him he can stay, but then strange things start happening around the house, and I don't want to talk more about it because I also went into this blind and I was very surprised when, when I started watching it. I was like, what is going on? But by the end of it, I was like, oh, I get it. I think I understand why all this happened. But it's very shocking, kind of, when you go into it without knowing anything about the story. So be prepared, but also I think it's very interesting. And the end is about this family who lives in a bunker because the earth is now unlivable. And basically, they've raised their adult son in this bunker his whole life. So he knows nothing about the outside world, but he thinks he does because his parents tell him their own version of events. And I also found that very interesting as well because it very much is talking about our lives now in this small story-like way. The end is also a musical, but it's not a musical in the way that I typically enjoy. I'm very, like, I'm a Disney kid. it's more somber. People have been calling it. So the music is not as big and flashy. It's more contemplative, quiet music, which I think fits the story. So I enjoy that about it. I know some people who didn't quite care for the music, but I thought it was okay, and I thought it worked in the story. I also saw a film called The Legend of the Vagabond Queen of Lagos, which was about this young woman who lives in the slums in shanties in Lagos. And then within the story, the government decides to tear the houses down. And so the whole community is in an uproar because where are they going to go? And that's basically what the story is about. And I like the story because it's stuff that happens in real life. And I think it's interesting for us, especially Nigerians, Lagosians, it's interesting for us to engage with them on a deeper level than just, oh yeah, this happens all the time, So I really respected that. Some of the filmmakers came to the screening and spoke about how they started the process, and they're from a collective called the Agbajo Collective. And a lot of them didn't set out to create this feature-length film. They were just, learning how to use cameras and to tell stories, and this came out of that. So I also really admire that and appreciate that, and that they got to show it here, which is really cool. And the next film that I want to talk about is also a Nigerian film called Freedom Way. And Freedom Way is about two young men who create an app that makes it easier for Okada riders or motorcycle riders to book passengers. But as soon as they've done this and their business is going well, the government decides to ban Okadas. And that makes their lives difficult. It also makes some of the Okada riders' lives difficult. And it's just kind of this domino effect of people making decisions in order to survive that aren't necessarily the best for them or for other people, and how all those decisions kind of affect everybody in the story, that was something I really appreciated about the story, was that everybody was connected. And I think it's a good reminder of how connected we are when things happen and we feel like, well, that's not my problem, or I'm not involved in that, so it doesn't concern me. But somehow it does, because you are still living in this same space. You are still existing as a person within this ecosystem. And so I really appreciated that about that film. The last film I want to talk about is a film called Ernest Cole, Lost and Found, which is actually a documentary about South African photographer Ernest Cole and his life, mostly in exile, actually. And I thought I thought it was deeply insightful. And I use those words because I think it exposes a lot about how artists feel specifically. This is just my own thinking. I think there are a lot of artists who live to capture things. They're capturing society, they're capturing culture. And sometimes when culture isn't positive, then the artist is burdened with the negativity that they're seeing, and they're forced to capture. Not forced, but you know what I mean? Like, they feel the need to capture. And that's kind of the sense I got from the film. Ernest Cole creates a photo book called House of Bondage about apartheid South Africa, and then he gets exiled to live outside. So he lives in the States, but now he's living in a system with other forms of racial discrimination. Same kind of racial discrimination, just in called a different thing. And he's burdened with how much evil he notices in the world. And so I just found I found the documentary very insightful. And I think I actually want to explore that more in another video that I'm having ideas about. So we will get to that at a different point. But that's also a good film. I wrote reviews for some of the films that I mentioned in this video. So I will link those reviews in the description. And then while you're there, check out Screenfish, which is who I write for. Check out some of our other reviews for some of the other films that I mentioned or didn't even mention in this video. There was a lot of great films at TIFF this year, and I think our team covered a lot of diverse stories. So you might find something that you really like and that you really want to see. So check that out in the description below. I have ideas for the next video I want to make, and I think it's definitely going to take me longer to make it. There's a lot of change happening, but also I want to make another different kind of video. So I'm hoping that I get to do at least one more video before the end of the year, which will be that one, probably sometime in December. But again, who knows? I might pop in the next few weeks with something else to say. But until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.